Hello, everybody. I'm just going to keep my promise here and do a part two to this communication series. And I'll probably do a part three, but let me get on here with part two. Now, in the first part, I gave a lot of information about the importance, the incredible importance uh, there is for parents to do your work in being a person of integrity. I explain the definition of integrity, which is to be one with, whole, undivided from. We answered the question about, well, what is it that I'm to be one with, or whole with, or undivided, from? Well, we talked about our code of honor. Code of honor being a set of virtues that I hold dear, and when those are held deeply, that's called conviction. That's why we say adults live by convictions. Uh, I'm going to ask you to note that right now because you're really going to need that. Like just ingrain that somewhere, put it on a sticky, right? Put it on a big old something or other, print it out, put it on your stove, take it to work, whatever it is. I hope you're listening to this video when you're going back and forth from work, or you got some time at work, or you're at home and you're just chilling. Adults live by conviction, and you're going to need that. But that is the trademark of being an adult, of being mature, is that we live for something greater than ourselves. We take direction from something greater than ourselves. The good news is that when it hits the fan, especially when it comes to communication, right? I mean, when we're communicating with other people and our kids, we need to remain stable. We need to remain clear. We need to maintain distance between ourselves and the mess that this thing could end up with. It's kind of like, I always say, if you want to rescue somebody who's in quicksand, the last thing you want to do is jump in there with them. You got to stay on the ground. Best thing to do is to throw them a rope, a lifeline. And so when our kids or people we're with are in that place of desperation and distress, and they're struggling, and it's like they're in the quicksand and they're fighting and scratching, and we happen to be close by and maybe getting a little of that collateral damage, we need to remain stable. We need to be connected to something bigger, something that is going to give us the vision and clarity and resilience to not only weather that storm, but to be victorious. It's kind of like almost like needing to breathe for two people. We need to be connected to a source of something that's life-giving, like oxygen. So instead of jumping into the panic, breathing, and having our rootedness, being rooted in something much deeper, much stronger. And that's what having integrity is like. It's for us as adults, it's about having depth of character, having some depth, so when things get tense, when it hits the fan, we can still stay true to ourselves, still stay true to our code of honor, still stay true to our sacred vow and promise. And so we covered a lot of that terrain, and also that we are as parents and even as people, when we're with other people, with our spouses or loved ones, or even any person, is that we are in the presence of something precious and sacred. And if we're parents, we've been given the privilege of caring for something at a very intimate and personal level, caring for something that is incredibly precious and sacred. And so whenever we, are in the presence of something like that, whenever we've been bestowed that kind of privilege, what shows up naturally is humility, appreciation, and gratitude. That we're just appreciative for being chosen to be in in that child's life in a significant way. And that's something that we really need to hang on to when we move forward, because so many parents seem to lose that. So many people when married people seem to lose that, or people in a relationship, or if we're in business, and business leaders tend to lose that for their employees. I mean, we just don't get the privilege that is, that people have dedicated their lives, time, and energy, to be with us. And we need to carry that in and carry that forward, ground ourselves there, live there, embody that. And So we talked about, about, again, definition of integrity, code of honor, sacred vow, um, you know, say the sacred privilege it is to be with somebody and to bring somebody up, and to how all of us as human beings want to be deeply enjoyed, and we also want to be a deep source of joy for other people, and how powerful a gift that is when you can bring that into a conversation, when you can bring that to your child, when you can bring that to your spouse. And when we can link that to that it's been a privilege bestowed from a greater authority, then it becomes unconditional. You see, so much of the love and affection that I see going on in families and in the world is a performance based. If you do this, then you get this. If you do this, you get this. At best, that's a business model, but it's certainly not a human relations. It's not a family model. And it's certainly not a reflection of the best of who we are as human beings. In addition to want to be a source of joy and to be enjoyed, we also deeply in our hearts want to be able to love people unconditionally, and we want to be loved unconditionally. Again, those are some of our deepest desires. So, and again, that's an expression of who we are as people of integrity. Absolutely. I strive to want to love unconditionally. Am I always good at it? No. So, what happens then? Right? Because we can have these great aspirations. We can say that we stand for love, respect, faith, truth, all this kind of stuff, and appreciation, gratitude, tenderness. But what happens on the playing field? All sorts of different temptations start to show up. We start to drift. We start to become self-obsessed. And then we start to lose our way, and tension and conflict starts to appear. What do we do in those moments? Well, first of all, let me say, in order to bring humility to the conversation as a cornerstone, as a bedrock, as part of the foundation, we need to be involved in a discipline. We spoke of that in earlier videos. We need to be involved, especially adults, involved in a discipline, a course of study, following some wisdom teachings that can keep us in a place of humility. It's a paradoxical experience, isn't it? It doesn't mean we lose ourselves. It means we become more effective. We can talk about when, as parents, we want to be something that our kids can look up to. We want to be something our kids can look up to. And oftentimes, this thing of humility that we talk about, we believe in humility and being humble, and Tim McGraw's song "Be Humble and Kind" way back, that he produced quite a while ago, great song. So we kind of like that as a title or a motto to live by, but to actually be in an active discipline to generate humility in us, that seems to be avoided by the plague, and it's part and parcel of the inflated time of entitlement and indulgence that we live in right now as well. So an active maturity is to pursue a wisdom discipline that leads to humility, where an immature discipline would actually fuel narcissism, egocentricity, and grandiosity. And that's a lot of where the world is right now, and where, unfortunately, psychology and many other kinds of self-help things are going. So in another video, I think, on adversity, I talk about how to be discerning when you choose a wisdom path. But humility. So how do we generate humility on a constant basis? Well, we're engaged in a discipline of it, but the cornerstones really of that are accountability and responsibility. The good news about that, parents, is that you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be on that path of being accountable and responsible. So, again, before you even go into the conversation, you want to be checking yourself. You want to be seeing if there's anything going on in your own personal experience, your own mind, that is indulgent. So if you're bringing in, I, me, like if you have personal frustrations and personal angers, and you have a personal agenda all that becomes personal, know that you've made it about yourself. Admit that. Admit that. What that might sound like is that, you could have said earlier, to your son or daughter, I'd like to spend some time talking about a particular issue. How does that work for your schedule, etc.? Okay, you got a meeting, scheduled for an afternoon. You find yourself all worked up. You know that if you're going to go into that meeting with your son or daughter, and the communication is going to be all sideways, and you're probably going to make a mess of it. So rather than try to pull that off, just admit it. Admit it to yourself and admit it to them, and go to them and say, out of the love and respect I have for yourself, because remember, those are the two main virtues in the code of honor. Out of the love and respect I have for you, I realize that I'm a bit agitated right now, or I'm just not in the right space. Can we reschedule this, 2 hours down the road, or another day, not too far down, right? Because then that becomes disrespectful. But first and foremost, you're working on your own integrity. You don't want to make matters worse. So be mindful, be aware. What are you bringing to the playing field right now? As a matter of your own integrity, to show love and respect is why you're taking these steps. They will benefit from it. You also have a sacred vow to love and respect them, but you also have a sacred vow to be true to yourself. So if you find yourself getting all worked up and your emotions are getting the best of you, don't run from that. Don't turn to an indulgence. Don't go have a smoke. Don't go have a drink. Don't go blame somebody else. Just be accountable for it, and it demonstrates some integral self-care to where, like I said, maybe you're going to choose to go for a walk. Maybe you're going to go to the gym. You're not trying to hide. You're trying to manage, if you will, yourself. You're disciplining yourself. Because if you truly love something, you're going to treat that thing with love, respect, tenderness, sensitivity. That's your vow. That's your promise. And you don't want to break your promise, because that'll have consequences for you, called anxiety primarily, and however you choose to deal with that. Again, you can deal with that through accountability and responsibility. What do I mean by that? Let's say you do try to engage in some communication with your son or your daughter. It goes sideways, right? You start to get all agitated. Things get heated. You start to accuse them of being disrespectful. They start to accuse you of the same. This is going nowhere fast. In fact, it's going to get worse. You can call a timeout and say, what? I really need to be accountable here. I'm really making a mess of this right now. And out of love and respect for you, and for wanting to be the best that I can be for you, I can't let this continue. I need to take a time out. I need to have this rescheduled. So you're not saying I need to take a time out because you're being a jerk. You're not saying because you're being so ridiculously disrespectful. You're owning it. You're saying, it's because I'm right now, I'm not being the truth of who I really want to be for you. I'm out of integrity right now. And so I'm asking some forgiveness here and take a little bit of time out. You see, that's a much easier thing for somebody to receive, because you're not making it about them. Now, that person might have been responding to you in a way that they were agitated, they were frustrated. Well, that's a matter of their own integrity. What you're accounting for is that you're being reactive, you're being triggered by what's going on, and which is causing you to show up in a way that isn't a true reflection of who you really are, of what your code of honor is, and what your sacred vow is. And that's your business. That's why we say adults live by conviction. Your first allegiance is to your conviction. That makes some sense? So, here's some other things that you can do. Think about it. Now, remember, you've regrounded. You're going to re-engage. What is your purpose? Your purpose is not task-driven, it's relationship-driven. It's not task-driven, it's relationship-driven. You're probably in communication with somebody who's overwhelmed in their own emotions, so they're in a more immature state, or you're dealing with somebody who is immature, a child or an adolescent. It's up to you as the one who's clear to remember what this is about. This is about love, right? This is about relationship. So go in with some curiosity. What's happening for you, you might say. And remember, perception is reality. This is just a killer for most parent-teen communications. A teen will say something like, you're never there for me, or you don't ever understand me, and they'll make these, most of us will at some point make these blanket accusations. You're never there for me, you never understand me, things like this. And and right away parents often will go, what do you mean by that? I'm there for you. And they start defending themselves, and then they start to make it about them. See how all of a sudden, it's forgivable that an immature child would make it about them. But for the adult to then come to their level and make it about them, now we've got two people who are self-obsessed and have their own agendas to satisfy, and that communication goes nowhere. That's why I was saying, when you go into communication, parents, you have to live for something greater than yourself, because you're going to have to find a resilience and a mindfulness and an attunement and a presence and a source of your own peace and serenity to be able to fulfill your heart's desire. Your heart's desire, is it not, to be the calm when your son or daughter is in the storm, to be the light when they're in the dark. You can't be those things if you jump into the quicksand with them. And if you jump into the quicksand with them, that's not their fault. You're the grown-up. You're the adult. Adults live by conviction. Adults experience conviction through a discipline of wisdom teaching. So if you find yourself constantly being triggered and reactive and jumping into the quicksand and defending yourself and all that kind of stuff, that's just indicative of you haven't done your work in proactively seeking out and adhering to a wisdom teaching. Right? That's what we know as adults. It's like our allegiance comes from a connection to something greater than what's going on here and now, than the two of us. In order for me to love people and to love my son, in the way that I truly want to love him, I cannot live my life for him. I live my life for something greater. As I live it's kind of like, imagine that you're walking down the road, it's starting to rain. You're both getting wet, but you have an umbrella. So you have that umbrella, you have it on you, it's with you, you have it in your hand, and you open it, and what happens? You stay dry, and the person next to you stays dry. The only way that can happen is through your connection first to the umbrella. And through your connection to that umbrella, you are able to open up something that the other person can benefit from. But if you don't have that connection to the umbrella, what happens? You both get soaked. You're both in trouble. So that's why your primary allegiance is to your wisdom teaching. It's to that greater cause. It's to those great ideals. So it's so important for parents to find that. So real quickly, I'm going to end this, but here's some nut and bolts stuff. So remember, when your son or daughter is kind of throwing at you these big statements you never understand, these things of this nature, practice paraphrasing. Now this is where some of the nuts and bolts make sense. But you don't want to put the cart before the horse. You don't want to try this stuff if you're all emotionally and spiritually and psychologically ungrounded. If you're not demonstrating, if you don't have integrity with the truth of who you really are and you try to practice this, it's just going to come off as some sort of strategy, or it's going to be self-motivated, and your child or teen is going to sniff that out, and they're going to like be pissed off at you. So after having done and keep working on your own integrity, minute by minute, moment by moment, through the conversation, being accountable and responsible, generating humility at all times, and your son or daughter says to you, "You never understand me. You never take the time to understand. You're always doing this, this, and this, and this." So you demonstrate what's called a paraphrase. That's just a summary of what they said. So you say this. What I hear you say is that you don't think I spend the time to sit down with you and really hear kind of where you're going with this. And they might say, well, yeah. So when you get that little head shake, when you get the yes or the head shake, that means you're on target. What's the good news about that? Well, the person's starting to feel understood. And when somebody feels understood, they feel cared about. When they feel cared about, they usually end up being more cooperative. So you want to start, remember, this is a relational idea, and an attachment idea. So you want to work on the relationship first. So paraphrase. Then there's a little perception check thing that you can do at the end of it. You could say, well, what I think what I hear you saying is that oftentimes I don't give you attention, and I'm talking maybe before I really understood what you said. Is that what you're saying? Did I get that right? And they might say yes. So you're checking your perception. That's why they call it a perception check. Another way to use perception check is, let's say your son or daughter isn't saying anything or very little. You might come in with what you think, kind of your impression is kind of like, okay, well, man, it looks like like you're a little bit sad today, or worried about something. I'm not really sure, so I'm not. Did something go wrong at school, or are you feeling okay? So you put like 3 different options, and just say, I'm not really sure what's going on, but you're kind of checking with their perception, or checking your perception. You don't really know. You're just taking your best guess. You're not saying what happened at school today. You're not being insistent, authoritative, or directive. You're being exploratory. You're being curious. You're being sensitive. All right. Now the next paraphrase is what I call a feeling paraphrase. So one of the jobs that we want to do as parents is to help our young, more immature people process their feelings, identify and process their feelings. So your son or daughter says, I'm so pissed off at you. Every day you just piss me off. There's, I've had enough. You might say, okay, first of all, thank you for letting me know. See, I can't be thankful for that kind of feedback unless I'm grounded elsewhere, because otherwise I'm going to take it personally and I'm going to start feeling defensive. I'm going to try to pull off this technique from a defensive place that's not going to work. I am getting some feedback. Perception is reality. Remember what we were saying? Perception is reality. So whether or not I feel like what's coming out of their mouth is true or not doesn't even matter. Why? Because I'm focused on the relationship, and I'm focused on helping my son or daughter process the feelings. That means I let go of my agenda. And parents, in truth, for the most part, you've got nothing to defend. You're good. Let that go. Focus on your sacred vow, which is to help your son or daughter. When they're in the storm, you want to be the light. So they might come at you with something like that. You might say something like, what I hear you saying, I think, is that you're upset and angry and maybe even a little sad. So they come in with maybe all these slang words. Well, go fuck yourself. I'm pissed off at you. I feel like shit. Whatever that is, certainly that's not integral expression, but it's expression. And so I might come back and say, what I hear you saying possibly is that, you're feeling angry today and a little confused and, frustrated. And is that fair to say? I'm perception checking that. And they say, yeah. See, so what I've done there is that I've helped my son or daughter label the feelings, get acquainted with their feelings. Instead of using that counterfeit feeling stuff that they're in counterfeit labels, which really doesn't help process the feeling. It just maintains it. But when I can nail that feeling in a more integral, genuine way and help them do that and help them identify feelings. And then I could say, oh, they might say, yeah, oh, really? Well, tell me more. What else is going on? So I encourage continued feedback. That's what we call processing it. I encourage it. I want to help my son or daughter move through this, but move through this in a way that has some integrity. So they spew forth a bunch of stuff that may be toxic or really not healthy. I summarize it back in a way that has some integrity and some health. They go, yeah, okay, I get that. They're kind of absorbing that, and you're leading by example. And then you say, okay, well, tell me more. And now you might have to repeat this again later in the day, right? Because it's just the way feelings are, aren't they? I mean, it's not all a tidy thing that happens all the time. You might come back later. Why? Because you love, respect, you're being curious, you're being sensitive. You might come back and go, how are you doing now? How are things for you now? I'm going to perception check a little bit and go, you still look a little down, maybe a little worried. I'm not sure. It's, you let me know. So again, you're not being directive, authoritative. You're not, putting words in their mouth. You're demonstrating curiosity, empathy, consideration, sensitivity, and you're able to do that in a way that's calm because you have at the same time grounded yourself in your own virtues, in your own code of honor, your own sacred vow. And again, that's not neat and tidy either. We talked about that before, where you might have to step away through an accountability. Say, I'm feeling frustrated right now. I'm not really able to be, present for you. I'm not really able to show you the love and respect that you deserve. I'm going to take a 15-minute break, or I'm going to, can we reschedule to talk about this afternoon or this evening? So this is a fluid type of thing, but it's all based upon those two pieces: working on your own integrity and being accountable when you're out of integrity. That is the great teaching. I mean, let's face it, folks. We're all human. We're all going to be out of integrity many, many times a day and throughout our entire lives. So what we really need to learn are the tools of accountability, responsibility, humility, forgiveness, and all that. And how we continue to love ourselves in this journey. And that's what's inspiring. So our kids can look up to us and go, wow, dad or mom, I mean, they really took some risk there. They really demonstrated some courage and some bravery and demonstrated honesty and leadership, and took that first step to admit something about themselves. That is really cool. That's a mind blower. That's deeply satisfying to the human soul. It says a lot, and one of those things it says is, this person's safe to be with. And when this person's safe to be with, maybe I can try it too. Because there isn't a parent out there that doesn't want their kid to demonstrate accountability and responsibility and be a person of integrity. But that's what it's like. It's back and forth: accountability, responsibility, accountability, responsibility. And as I said in earlier videos, parents, if you don't embrace it and practice it, why would your son or daughter do it? I've seen sons and daughters do it in spite of their parents. They look at their parents and go, I don't want to be like them, so I'm going to be this way. And at least it's kind of a step in a better direction, but it's not authentic yet. Don't let that happen, parents. Don't let your kids kind of take the lead, out of spite for you having not done it. That's not the truth of who you are. You want to lead in love and respect and humility. And that's we know that's the road less traveled, but it's the road of honor. And so doing that work is the great work. And believe me, your son and daughter will look up to you forever. That will leave a mark on them. long after you're gone, and it'll carry on in the best way from generation to generation. And that'll help heal past betrayals and traumas of all kinds. So I hope this piece on communication has been helpful as well. Appreciate your feedback. Again, if you want me to send you the well, I've got numerous articles on communication and some of the things that we've talked about, but specifically the how to do your own code of honor and your sacred vow, then message me with your email address and I'll get that to you, and you can have that right in your hands, in front of your face. And you know what? And your other family members may be interested in this too. I mean, I've got parents who, I do it with everybody when I work with them. Every family member works on a code of honor. And if we can take the next step, they'll do their sacred vow and promise. And that's really cool when everybody's working on that. Now everybody can see right in front of them what their code of honor is, and whether or not what's coming out of their mouth and what they're thinking and how they're behaving is a true reflection of who they really are. That's what we call self-discipline. And we all want our sons and daughters to learn how to be self-disciplined, but we have to lead the way. So anyway, those handouts are available to you. So please ask for them if you'd like to have them. All right, I'm out of here. Have a good day.